Welcome, everybody, to the League Baum Podcast. It is week 9, and holy moly, does this NFL season just roll right along. Crazy day, crazy week. And joining me today is a new face and someone that people should get to know because he's a great dude. Fellow Commissioner Jonathan Bakshi. Hey, buddy. What's going on?
Very excited to be here. Thank you, Yoni, for having me on. Let's get going.
Oh, we're getting right into it. I was going to ask you how your day was going. I was going to ask you how your week is going, how your team is looking. You just want to get right into it.
Yeah, let's get right into it.
Oh, wow.
Especially
Okay.
since my team sucks right now.
Well, join the club. 3-5, 3-5.
Actually, it's 5-3, but I lost Breece Hall and I traded McLaurin and Devonta Smith for Elijah Mitchell and Wilson about a few weeks ago.
I wonder who gave you that recommendation.
Yeah, I wonder who.
Well, no, and also 5-3, you can't be complaining that your team sucks. You can't. I'm going to tell you about a trade that I did earlier yesterday and the day before. And at 3-5, sometimes you just gotta take a swing for the fences before the trade deadline and whatever.
Yeah, of course.
Speaking of trade deadline, we got a whole bunch of moves. We got a great show. Hopefully, we'll be talking NFL trades. We'll be talking my own League Baum trades. Bakshi, if you have any trades in your league that you have, feel free to pop in. I would love to hear those, especially if it involves Jeremy. And what else? We also are going to have some little league comparisons. Just, it's fantasy football. We all love talking fantasy football. So why not? And then I'm going to get your perspective on a fresh perspective on our, meaning League Baum's matchups, and see what you think, because having an outside perspective on this is actually a lot of fun, and I'm very, very excited.
Yeah, gotta have an objective voice. Everyone has their own rivalries, and gotta have someone objective to call out any of the garbage for other teams. Everyone thinks their team is good.
Oh no, for sure, bro. I had a trash team in the beginning of the year, and I knew it, but I wouldn't admit it to everybody, even though everyone would say I had a trash team. But heck, now we live and learn.
There you go.
So let's get right into the NFL trades and what they're going to mean for fantasy players that went to other teams, players that stayed, all that different stuff. I know I have it in a specific order on here, but I'm going to switch it up a little bit. Because Calvin Ridley doesn't make sense to start with him. So let's start with Chase Claypool getting traded to the Bears. Now, obviously, there's a whole bunch of different aspects to this one. First and foremost being the player that I feel that this benefits the most, not even Chase Claypool, is definitely Justin Fields. Having another big playmaker, whether or not Claypool goes in the slot and gets Mooney on the outside or not, I'm not sure. I'm very curious. I picked up Claypool in a couple of leagues right off the bat, right out of this. So, yeah, I want to hear what your thoughts on Claypool, on the Steelers, on the Bears. Go ahead.
Well, first off, the Steelers are actually interesting because it looks like this year it's going to be their first year being under 500 with Mike Tomlin as a coach. So, the fact that they're sellers, especially with the playmaker like Claypool, maybe not as good as he used to be in the past, and he's still a good football player. And, it's just a shame to see where the Steelers are now. But I don't know. I thought about it when the trade went down. If you look at Justin Fields' stats this year so far, he has right now 1,200 passing yards for the year, and they haven't had their bye week. So that's that's 150 a week. 150 passing yards a week is not a lot. And only 364 of those yards are to Mooney, 25 catches on 44 targets, 364 yards, 0 touchdowns. That's around
No touchdown. You're right.
right. That's about 5.5 targets a game, about 3 catches. And you're not looking at a big workload for Mooney, who is by himself right now. That team seems to me as a run first team. I would, if for fantasy purposes, I don't see Claypool even as a starter unless you're in a 12-team league, 14-team league. Different. So my league's a 10-team league. So
Right.
so he's definitely not a starter. Unless your team is in dire need. But yeah, if you look at Mooney's numbers right now.
I'm in dire need. I might have to start him this week.
Well, there you go. Well, we'll get into we can compare how crappy our teams are right now
Yeah. So
later. But yeah, he's just, he's averaging 45 yards a game, 7.5 targets, 5 receptions in the last 4 games. It's, nothing special. I mean, yes, will this open up the offense a little bit more? Absolutely. I think though, if anything, it's gonna put a lot of pressure on Justin Fields to, be more of a passer than he usually is.
provide. No, I definitely hear that. My thing has been in terms of all this, and I definitely hear what you're saying as far as the low volume offense. There was a game this year that they only had 17 passes. And the thing is that since, this past 2 weeks, he's been I believe he's been a top 6 or 7 QB, mainly because they've allowed him to run the ball more. But if there's one thing that Justin Fields loves to do, and it has loved to do since he was at Ohio State, is he loves to throw the ball deep. And obviously that's been a lot of Darnell Mooney. Right now it's been Equanimeous St. Brown, N'Keal Harry, all Velus Jones, a lot of people, that no one gives a rat's behind about. But I think that in the Patriots game against Dallas, the last couple of weeks, they've kind of figured out their offense, obviously scoring 33 and 29 points respectively on 2 very good defenses is nothing to sneeze at. And it's something that I believe that could continue on a positive trajectory and does have the ability to have someone like Chase Claypool contribute in a positive way. Now let's look at it on the other side of the trade. What does this do in terms of Deontay Johnson and George Pickens for Kenny Pickett for the Steelers? Chase Claypool, I think you said what? He was averaging how many targets?
I pull it up right now. I was saying Mooney's targets right now. He is about 44 targets, 25 catches for only 360 yards. May seem, you would think that when you lose a, receiver, other receivers now pick up the slack and get more targets.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. That Steelers offense is honestly pathetic, beyond pathetic. And Claypool, just looking at his numbers right now, the last 3 games, last week he had 4 catches for 45 yards, no touchdowns except for the one he threw.
Right.
He had the week before, 5 catches, 41 yards. Week before that, 7 catches, 96 yards and a touchdown. Good week. Week before that, 5 catches, 50 yards. Nothing. And then the week before that, and then now you're going back to week 4. But my point is, he's not putting up crazy. If you're in a PPR league, it could help because he's getting a good number of looks his way. So that'll definitely help, Deontay Johnson and, others to get looks come their way. But I don't know. I just don't see that Steelers offense getting the wide receivers at least getting so much of a fantasy boost because of his departure. That is just horrible. And
I hear you.
I might be a little bit biased because I took Najee in another league and he's basically destroyed that league for me.
Oh no, for sure. Najee's been trash. And that's talking to someone that's one of the biggest Najee Harris lovers in the world, being an Alabama fan. But here's the 2. I just want to say 2 more things on this Chase Claypool thing. One, I think that the red zone opportunities for the Steelers are going to now go much more to Pickens and the Muth, Pat Freiermuth. is definitely going to have more opportunities. Chase Claypool, although only having one receiving touchdown this year, had only, I think, one or two receiving touchdowns last year. Sidebar, hilarious that he thought that he was top 5 receiver. Do you remember that conversation he had? That
A
interview?
while back.
Yeah. At the beginning of the year, he like said that he was a top 5 receiver or something. Hilarious. Like one of the funniest things I've ever heard. And so that,
He's lucky he's top 5 on the Steelers.
and then what?
He's lucky he's a top 5 option on the Steelers.
That's what I said when he originally said it. It was just like it was so like, I don't want to say narcissistic because you're allowed to think highly of yourself for sure. Like, let's be honest, we all like to think highly of ourselves. However,
There's delusion.
there's just this self-awareness that there has to be sometimes, and saying you're a top 5 guy, it just doesn't make sense. So Deontay Johnson is averaging the 3rd most targets in the NFL. How? I have no idea. But not averaging, he has the 3rd most. You wouldn't see that with any fantasy production, but it's just like you're not getting less targets now with Claypool, who's in the last 3 averaging 7 targets a game, and then even the week before he had 9. So in the last 4 weeks, 7-8 targets a game. That's a good chunk of change that's going away. And speaking going away, the Eagles are now up 29-17. I didn't watch the game for 5 minutes and the game gets out of hand. So ain't that.
Well, I mentioned this to you earlier quickly about the Eagles game that, everyone obviously, no one was expected the Texans going to win, but, looking at those two teams, short week on the road, Eagles are one of the worst second half football teams in terms of their offense. They allow teams to come back on them. And the Texans are playing with house money, nothing to lose. They've actually, the past few weeks, they've did a good job at holding teams on average to 17 points a week. So I always thought it was going to be a lot closer than the 14-point spread. But
Right.
even now, it's only 12. If you bet the under, you'd still be winning.
Bet the under or betting because it was a 46 points. It was 44, I think. The over under. I'm not sure.
The 40.
Anyway.
You'll definitely win with the spread at least.
Oh yeah, no, for sure. They're showing John Mechie and Devonta Smith, which I love. Being Alabama. Oh, I love it.
Devonta Smith.
Yeah. Anyway, so let's get right along. Okay, Nyheim Hines screwing up this Devin Singletary's production. Like that's just, especially on the pass catching downs, is definitely not what you want to see as far as someone who might have Singletary on their squads. I don't know. Does Singletary move down to only a flex consideration, or because to me he does? He was in that RB2 conversation, but now he's only a flex. I don't know what you would think on that.
I don't even know what to think of the Bills' backfield, to be honest, right now. It's
because their RB1 is Josh Allen.
Their RB1 is Josh Allen. He's an entire offense. The only thing he can't do is catch passes, and I wouldn't be surprised if he starts doing that too. I mean, this offense, going into the year, everyone's thinking Zach Moss is going to be the guy. Like everyone thought he could take Singletary's job. Yes, I call him Singletary, but I don't know. That whole backfield is.
I like that.
Also, you have to remember, Hines is a very good check down running back for quarterbacks. Right now, he's 25 for 188 yards this season so far, which is not a lot. He said touched the ball 25 times for 188 yards in total. And Josh Allen's not the type of quarterback who's, when he's in pressure situations, just going to check down to a running back. He will just become the running back or finesse his way to a first down every now and then.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I think Devin Singletary is still the RB1 for that team, if you want to call it that, after Josh Allen.
Mm-hmm.
He would theoretically get goal line carries still. I just see Nyheim Hines as a change of pace, which, if I can make one last point, which is the most surprising, I thought the Bills were going to do a lot more at the deadline. I mean, there were rumors that like running backs could have been traded left and right. Like Kamara, even I heard at one point could have been traded. But
I didn't hear Camaro. Wow,
I
that's
heard
new.
I heard a rumor that he could have been that, but again, I'm just the idea that the Bills didn't even do much just surprises me. I thought they
They
would.
were stacked. They're the best team in football. And
Could
yeah,
you imagine if they had gone McCaffrey instead? I mean,
honestly, I like where McCaffrey ended up because I trust Kyle Shannon. So I don't know if I actually ever got to really talk about it. I don't remember if I talked about it last week on the podcast. It was before or after. But Kyle Shanahan has this ability to game script players or game script for players to go off according to their skill sets. Does it for George Kittle. He's done it for Debo. He's done it for Brandon Ayuk even, who, by the way, I've been trying to trade for in every single league because I legit I wrote this in my league chat last night and the night before. I wasn't so interested in the other sports that were on, so NFL Network had replays, and I was watching the Rams versus the Niners. And Brandon Ayuk is very good at football. He gets open. He has short yardage, quick twitch. He's just a very good receiver that, like, I loved him 2 years ago, last year. Then it ended up being the Devo year. So, I mean, I just feel that he's someone that I've been targeting a lot. So, just getting back to McCaffrey, I think that he ended up in the best possible spot for him because he's in an offense where they are able to script very, very well for the players that they have.
well, yeah, that's for sure. I mean, Kyle Shanahan grew up in football. His father was legendary coach as well. I mean,
Right?
this is, he's always had Sean McVay's number. If you look at the Niners, I don't pull up the record. The record against the Dolphins is ridiculous at this point.
Yep.
And no, it doesn't surprise me. I mean, they'll always find a way to, feed that many mouths to that offense.
Mm-hmm.
Kittle was nothing during games this year and as a blocker, and now he's somewhat back in the fray.
He's getting back into it.
It's always interesting. I mean, this can kind of lead to another player that may or may not need to be discussed, and that's Jeff Wilson, who now just got shipped out of town because of McCaffrey.
That's what we call a professional segue, my friend.
There we go.
V. Wait a frickin' V. Love it. What does it do to Raheem Mostert, and what do you think it does for it doesn't do anything for McCaffrey. McCaffrey's gonna get 80% of the touches, 80% of the snaps. But what do you think it does for what's his name? For
Eli Mitchell?
And Wilson.
I mean, listen, Jeff Wilson's situation isn't that much better. I mean, he went from a third string on the Niners when Eli Mitchell comes back to now the second string on the Dolphins, which is a pass-first team. I mean, Jalen Waddle, Tyreek Hill, that's their offense, and Mostert is their third option. And he's also very, very susceptible. He gets injured a lot. So having a guy like Wilson as a cuff could be huge if you have him. I personally have him in my league, traded for him for two receivers that now I wish I hadn't because he's McCaffrey then got traded to the Niners like a week later. So I'm still gonna hold on to him because you never know what could happen.
Absolutely, he's a top handcuff.
And also, it's interesting what's going to happen to Eli Mitchell now because now there's no competition for who the change of pace to McCaffrey is. I don't know what they're going to do with him. I mean, he's still a talented running back, and I was a little surprised that when they got McCaffrey, I wasn't shocked because I know the Niners are still going for it, but I thought Eli Mitchell was a very good running back. Just was played with the injury bug.
So that's the reason why, because that's the funny part. Because if there's someone that is a quote unquote injury prone guy, that is Christian McCaffrey. So why would you go from a different injury prone player to another injury-prone player. But when you have that much talent and watching the game over again as a taunt, like McCaffrey is so good. Yeah, he fumbled and whatever, but like they're not giving him the ball. He's going to be massively involved for sure.
Yeah, I mean, shout out to the Panthers also. I mean, they've just didn't lose a step. I mean, last week they
Oh
lost.
yeah, no, for sure.
I mean, last week they lost, but like the game was insane.
Oh, that was a really fun game.
Came down to the wire.
I was watching that with my father-in-law. It was hilarious. He was like,
Oh, I mean,
how do they keep missing field goals?
I know. I don't know what it is. It's like in overtime, kickers just forget how to kick field goals.
It was pretty funny. All right. Now let's again another segue.
Well, yeah, now that Jeff Wilson is in town, he's taking over.
The Chase Edmonds role.
There we go.
Chase Edmonds was clearly not reliable enough for the Dolphins to, in case Raheem Mostert did get hurt, to have someone to carry the load or even be a change of pace back either. Although he's been having a lot of drops this season, which is weird because his specialty has been pass catching in the past when he was on the Cardinals. And it's just very interesting now with a three-headed committee in Denver, having Melvin Gordon, having Latavius Murray, and then now also having Chase Edmonds. Is there any fantasy value to be had? Do the Broncos figure it out on offense after the bye week? I would put that at about a 20% chance that happens.
You're giving Hackett way too much credit.
I'm giving Russell Wilson the credit, to be honest.
Fair enough. But
not Hackett. Hackett sucks.
Again, I looked at this trade very similar to the Hines trade. I mean, did you really improve your running back situation? Really? Like Melvin Gordon, some people think he's a fumble machine and that Latavius Murray was there to take his job eventually.
He's the starter though.
Yeah, in London he got a goal line carry at the end of the game, salvaged a touchdown for me at the end, which was nice. Boone is now on IR.
Yes.
And so I thought it would, clear the. I heard they signed Marlon Mack to practice squad. Like the Broncos are all over the place trying to figure out their running back situation. And I mean, if just to throw in some numbers here for Chase Edmonds, like you mentioned, he's primarily a pass catching back. He hasn't had double-digit carries since week 1. To list them in order from 2 to now, it's 6, 7, 7, 1, 4, 7, 4. Those are the number of carries he's had.
That's so few.
Yeah, again, 6, 7, 7, 1, 4, 7, 4. And now you're going to an offense where nobody knows who the running back is. We think it's Latavius Murray, but would you be surprised if he loses his job to Melvin Gordon another week? And then Melvin Gordon gets shelved. And now it's Chase Edmonds. Who even knows? Broncos are horrible. They're a disgrace. They're one of those teams where this is why I love football. Because
absolutely.
You look at the parity, and there's a statistic that I always find when people talk about football that makes me love it. Every year in the playoffs, there's always on average 2.5 teams that will not be there next year. And then you look at the season this year, you have Jets and Giants are really good. You have the Falcons are in first place in their division.
Yep.
No one's surprised about the Chiefs, but I don't think any of us saw the Seahawks being first in the division at all.
Ooh.
The Vikings are dominating the NFC North. I mean, I just love the
Packers. I think I called that in my preseason predictions. I don't remember, but I really want to say that I did.
I mean,
Vikings would win the division, not that they would dominate, obviously.
Right, they have a 3-game lead right now.
Yeah, it's pretty whack.
Yeah, so I mean, this is why no one I think the Seahawks is the craziest one.
Oh, for sure.
If you told me they were going to be third in the division, I'd be like, whoa, who's going to be worse than them? Like,
Right. And last week I called for them to win the division like a crazy person.
they're this is so yeah, it's
But
one of
yeah,
football. Russell Wilson comes to the Broncos and now he sucks, and everyone's
that's hilarious.
My dad's a Broncos fan, so I should be nice. I'm actually named after John Elway, so I have to be a little nice.
Okay. I like that.
My bris was 2 days before his first Super Bowl win in 1998, and my dad named me Jonathan for good luck. So, got to be a little nice.
Great. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
All right. So let's go. Speaking of those Vikings from before, let's go to a big trade that they made, giving up a couple high-end picks. But you know, okay. So now no. Yep, we're good. Don't worry. And then so getting TJ Hawkinson on the squad. Now, let's just get this out of the way. No Lions tight ends should be picked up. No Lions tight ends should be thought about. It's only the other players. However, this gives Kirk Cousins another weapon. You got Adam Thielen, KJ Osborne, and of course Justin Jefferson. And you know, it's very possible that he could be a top 9, top 8 quarterback going forward, just on the sheer volume of passing. They're above expectation in pass. They're one of the top passing above expectation teams in the NFL. They're definitely one of the more fun teams to watch. That's for sure.
Oh, that's for sure.
And yeah, it's just they're scoring points, and I just think that Hawkinson giving them what Irv Smith was very much not giving them as another option in the middle of the field is something that you're gonna like to. I think everyone's gonna like seeing, and it's gonna be good for fantasy. I think that this is an upgrade for Hawkinson, even though he goes from probably the number 2 option in the offense, 2, 3, depending on whether Swift is healthy or not. To the number 3 number 3 or 4.
Maybe over Thielen, but definitely behind Cook and Jefferson.
Right, exactly. I would say he's behind Thielen also. But they're going to be competing for those same type of targets. So we'll see.
Well, this is one of those things where this is, like I said earlier, this is what a trade that they're going for it. They say we have a need. We're gonna trade. We're gonna help. The Lions moved up. They didn't lose. They actually didn't lose picks per se, in the sense that they don't have any picks now in the draft. They just swapped to move down. And the Lions just jumped them. So, to me, this was a slam dunk win for the Vikings.
Absolutely.
And the idea that Kirk Cousins now is another weapon. I mean, Kirk Cousins has been having a monster year, which is, you don't often hear that. And I mean, when it's not in prime time, he does. And the interesting thing, though, I thought about was, if you remember years back, you had like tight end like Kyle Rudolph, right? Did you ever have Kyle Rudolph personally for you? Did you ever have him as a tight end in your league?
I did.
Right. And was he not? And he was just your basic standard. He'll get his 4 catches, get his 60, 70 yards. Maybe he'll get a touchdown. Very floor-based.
Solid floor, very solid player.
I don't see why Hawkinson can't be that anymore.
I agree.
I mean, their team is
athletic.
I mean,
he's also more athletic. And
I mean, again, you're thinking of Kyle Rudolph. At the time, it was Diggs and Thielen. Now it's Jefferson and Thielen. And still have Dalvin Cook. I don't see the situation as that much different as it was when you had Kyle Rudolph, and he was a serviceable tight end to have. And yeah, Jefferson's better than Diggs. Maybe you probably, you could safely argue he's better. I mean, depends who you ask.
It's better at that as a Viking.
Correct. Yeah, he definitely was. He's definitely better, right, than when Diggs was a Viking.
We're not arguing that Diggs and Jefferson. You honestly, you can make a case for either one right now.
Right, but when Diggs was a Viking, he was not as good as Jefferson is right now, 100%.
Correct.
But Hawkinson is a step above Rudolph. I think we all agree with that. So
Yes.
it's just going to be interesting. I don't think his production gets hit just because he's in a loaded offense. I think it spreads out even more. I think now Kirk Cousins is another toy he can play with, especially in the red zone. Uh, that team is dangerous. I mean, kudos to the Vikings.
Definitely, man. All right. So and then let's just very quickly, Calvin Ridley going to the Jaguars. This is more of a next year thing, but just like I found it very cool because you haven't heard his name in a long time, and it's just like I saw you heard the fantasy footballers say how the Jaguars pre-ordered not Damian Pierce. This is what happens when you're watching a game. Pre-ordered Calvin Ridley for 2023, which is pretty funny. I just like having whenever you give your young quarterbacks weapons, I'm all for it. And this is exactly that with Trevor Lawrence.
Right. You see how, we'll see how it turns out. Jalen Hurts gets a weapon, and now he's a possible MVP candidate now with a new weapon to play with. Now, just to start off, I'm going to give a shout out to Jeremy Solomon. The whole Calvin Ridley situation, he deserves every game of that suspension, just putting it out there, because say what you want about how the NFL treats domestic violence people and stuff like that. The whole situation with, all these like Sean Watson, everything like that. That's a different argument. Calvin Ridley still deserved every game of that suspension because you cannot damage at the end of the day the shield. And if the NFL feels that fans won't think that the game is legit because their players are gambling and betting, it ruins their bottom line. So Ridley 100% deserved every game of that suspension. Having said that, great trade by Jacksonville. They're not, I don't think any of us expect them to go that crazy far this year, if anything. If you look at Christian Kirk's numbers this year, he has about 498 yards, so 500 yards, 4 touchdowns. He's right now in a half PPR league. He's the wide receiver 16.
I don't
And
know how that's possible. He hasn't done anything in weeks.
this is what happens when you pay a guy a ton of money to be your wide receiver 1. But what the problem is that in the last 3 of the last 4 games, he's averaging under 4. He's gotten under 40 yards in 3 of the last 4 games.
Right.
And in an offense that has scored on average 17 points per week. So, when Calvin Ridley comes right in there, I don't think any of us doubt that he can be a wide receiver 1 when he plays. So
that's crazy. 11 yards 3 weeks ago.
Yeah. 40. He had a crazy 96 2 weeks ago, and then 24-11. Like this team just, they have Christian Kirk, and
they're inconsistent.
ETN. That's James Robinson's bye. Let's go Jets. But
yep.
Yeah, it's just interesting what the Jaguars are going to look like. To me, this was really Lawrence's real first year, because the Urban Meyer year, no one's going to remember that. Everyone's going to look at that as just a wash because of Urban Meyer. This is the first year we can see like Lawrence play with not a tire fire of a head coach. And it's nice that, to see that they traded for a weapon for him for next year. I think it was a good move. I don't know. It didn't seem like it was a problem for either team. Falcons, I don't know, think they realistically think they're going to go far, but it's a good move for them to have also.
Definitely, man. Okay. So next up, we're gonna get into the League Baum trades, but first we're gonna take a quick break over here, and